Welcome to the Success Series Special Edition, Managing Remotely, brought to you by Louisiana State Civil Service. I'm Christy Atwood, and my wonderful co-host is...
Hi, I'm Kimberly.
We're going to be joined today by the Talent Development Leadership Team. You're going to love these folks and our special guest leadership team person from the Civil Service. So they're going to be joining us today to share some really good information with you. You know, you are leading during one of the most challenging situations that any of us will ever experience. And we want to be able to help. And the way that we're trying to do that is to give you some tools, some information, even maybe a change of mindset about how you manage as you learn to work in the world of virtual teams. And that's what today is all about. All this information is in your handouts. Your handouts are on the Civil Service page, and I will show you the link and how you get to it at the end of this program today in case you don't remember how to get there. Got that for you. Even got some links for you to sign up for some future webinars that you're going to love. All right. So we are ready to get ourselves going. Our whole goal for today is giving you tools to support and communicate with your new virtual work team. Totally different world that we're working with now. And we wanted to give you some insights, things that are working across the state and other agencies. We never know unless we get a chance to share those. And that's what we're trying to do with this today. So we wanted to start out and think really big picture because your team is different now. I mean, they still need a lot of the same things, but they have a lot more needs in many ways because they're going through some challenges too, and they need more from you than they did before, actually. And so that's what I wanted to ask you. Okay, Kimberly, you want to tell us who's going to be helping us with this?
All right, so what Christy talked about earlier, our special guests, we have Toby Como, who's our Chief Administrative Officer of State Civil Service, and he's going to help us out with this question. What does my team need from me right now?
Thanks, Kim. I really think the biggest thing that we sort of learned, and I've learned, is that my team needs me to be available. We are working very differently than we normally work. We're experiencing different things together, and in the workplace, we have a way that we typically work. Um, we're there. We can, walk out of our office right around the corner and get something done. This is presenting some different challenges for us where those things aren't happening. And so the pace of work is different, the requests are different. So on one hand, it's availability, for me to be able to respond to a team member, to be able to call them on the phone, be able to answer a question for them, to allow them to do something else. But in addition to be available, it's really sort of understanding too that that it's okay to respond differently. It's okay to work differently. The expectations are slightly different because of the challenges we're facing with the distance that we have between each other, and the understanding that we're all experiencing this in different ways. Whether you're an administrator or a frontline supervisor or a middle level manager, every one of us is experiencing some kind of a challenge with this, and so it's really that. Let me know that you're there. Let me know that you can respond to me. Let me know that it's okay if I can't get back to you in an hour. Maybe it's going to take me 2 hours, or maybe it's going to take me to the afternoon, and let me know that that's okay.
That flexibility and adaptability, they become our keywords, don't they? Glenn, you had something to add to this, didn't you?
Yeah, and Toby raises some very good points. Is that availability, letting your people know that you're available. That's key. Whether it be, hey, you have an open door policy, if you will, in the office, and having an open phone policy in this situation, letting them know, hey, if you need anything, whether it's just to ask something about work, get answer to a question, or if you just need to blow off some steam and voice some frustration because the kids are running around in the background and you need to vent a little bit. And I know Toby knows how that is with 3 at home with him. But, have them know, hey, look, if you need anything, text, I'll call you usually within 30 seconds. But another thing to keep in mind is who better to tell you what they need from you than your employees. So just simply asking, saying, hey, what can I do for you? We're all in a difficult situation here. What are some things that I can do? What do you need from me so that I can help you adapt, be productive, and not be stressed to the extreme? And a real big benefit, a way you can do that is something that we've done as a team, and that's through team norming. And I think we have a slide for that. And team norming basically is just the group discussion of your working group and coming together and deciding and coming to an agreement, a unanimous agreement on this is how we're going to operate as a team. You can see the different areas here that we've worked through. The expectations. What are your expectations for your team members? What about meetings? What are they going to cover? How often are they going to happen? How long are they going to be? Are you going to have agendas during those meetings? Um, Listening. How are you going to make sure that you're showing that you're listening to your coworkers? What's kept confidential? What gets passed up? What gets shared? That's really important in situations like this. Conflict. Just because we're working remotely doesn't mean we're not going to encounter conflict. So setting those ground rules on, okay, if you have a conflict with a coworker, you have 48 hours to address it with them. You can't come to a solution, find a mediator. Setting those ground rules, accountability, and then the platinum rules. Everybody has heard of the golden rule. Treat others the way that you want to be treated. Well, the platinum rule takes that a step further and treat others the way they want to be treated. So having each individual of your team set forth those ground rules of this is how to communicate with me best, especially during this time. Because we have a set of platinum rules that we have in the office, and we revisited these when we went to teleworking because we're in different environments. It's a new world right now. So stresses that we have in the office, we may have different and more stress at home, depending on the situation that you find yourselves in. But taking the time, and it's not too late. I know some of you are like, well, we've been doing this, but I've kind of lost track of time. Is it 3 weeks now? But it's not too late. It's not too late to sit down and even you may be thinking to yourself, hey, we haven't had any problems. It's still worth a conversation worth having so that if you do encounter those problems, you have those set forth ground rules that you can move forward with.
What a great point. It's just an opportunity for communication anyway. So there's never anything wrong with that. And yeah, because we can't say things like, when you visit with me, I want you to do this. Well, no, it's a totally different communication style. Yeah, Glenn?
And one more thing, and I know as supervisors, as managers, we at the end of the day are responsible for overseeing a team that produces something that has objectives, expectations to meet, and that's our job. But in this situation, it's important to remember when you do have that communication with your employees that check up on the task, but check up on the person too. Check up on their well-being. How are they doing? Like maybe they've had a rough day and they just need to have a couple minutes to just blow off some steam. So check on the person as well as the task to make sure that you're making sure that your employees are mentally and emotionally dealing with what's going on.
Yeah, and I think Lynn makes a really good point. One of the things that I think our teams need, they need to see that we're doing this too. We're experiencing the same challenges that they're experiencing, and it is difficult. It's not easy. Your office is set up at the office for a reason, I think, and it's not necessarily easy to juggle these things at home. But I think it is easy for people to lose sight of that. Especially the higher you go, where it's like, look, I mean, sometimes those things get forgotten. Like there are challenges that we have as administrators that it's important that I think we communicate that with our teams. And I think the more that they see that we're trying to juggle the same types of challenges, the same types of anxieties that our teams are, I think that builds some credibility. I think that builds some confidence, and I think it makes people feel, we're in this, like we're in this together. And I think it's important. That's an important message to get across to your teams, even if it's tough. Like even if you're having one of those days, and I've had a couple of these days where it's like, this is tricky. That's okay. And I think being able to express that to them where in the office you may not feel comfortable expressing that, or being vulnerable in that way. I think that's an important thing in this time, to express those things and to be open to your teams in that regard.
That is an excellent point. We need to be able to say that, because that gives the opening for that employee to be able to say, yeah, I'm having a hard time too. That's the kind of thing that we don't normally automatically tell, our bosses. And that's a great way to be able to do that. But at least we're not in it alone, right?
Right.
Excellent. Okay, and Jennifer Schulke from our team wanted us to remind people that we are available to help facilitate these conversations with their remote teams. So if you need some help coming up with your team norms and things like that, hey, we're here to serve. Excellent stuff, y'all. Thank you very much for your comments on this one. All right, well, we are rolling, and let's see here what we've got for our next area we're talking about. Okay, communication. I mean, a lot of the things that they just talked about dealt with communication, and it's such a vital part of all that we do. And it's going to be a little different now, isn't it, Kim?
Definitely. And so our next question is, how often should I communicate with my team? And we have a member of the talent development team, Lacey, who's going to give us some tips about this question.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm actually in the office today. I had to come in for a report. It's weird. It's really weird to be up here by myself. I keep looking over my shoulder. It's strange, but I kind of miss the place, So let's see, how often? I think Toby and Glenn really captured the first piece of this, which is you have to think about what the other person needs. And this goes up and down the chain of command. It's not just what your employees need, but you also think about what your bosses need, the people above you, below you. What does it need? What do they need to be able to first do their jobs, and second, to be okay? Because we're all having days when we're not okay, and that's just how it's going. I think the second thing I think about is, what is the person working on? If it's something that you would normally work closely with them in the office, I think it's important to figure out how to work closely with them in the remote setting. Just because the distance has changed doesn't mean that the task or how the task is done has to fall on one person. So I also think if it's time sensitive, or how important is it, what level of priority is it? If it's mission critical, you may need to communicate more often than not. And if it's something that's new to them, I find some of my employees are doing tasks that they've never done before. So we're in almost daily, several times a day contact, just because they've never worked on these types of tasks before. So that's the second thing. I got one more. What do you need? I think you have to factor in what you need to do your job and to be okay. And you may need to communicate. I think Toby said this, and Glenn touched on it too. You have to tell the people you're working with what you need.
Mm-hmm.
And when things aren't quite in alignment and people need other things, then you have to negotiate and figure out what works for both people.
This is the time for that open two-way communication.
Exactly.
And don't expect it to be one size fits all, because every one of us is going to be so different.
Yeah, exactly.
You think about the different personality types. Lord, there are some of us that we have that personality type that if we don't hear something frequently, we think something's wrong.
Yes, definitely.
And then there are those people who'd really be happy not to hear from us that often.
Well, and that's me. Like, sometimes when the first couple of weeks, it was really challenging for me because I was getting a lot of requests for communication. And as an introvert, I got a little overwhelmed. And that's when I had to talk with my specific work team and say, okay, what do we all need? And we made some arrangements to meet on a regular basis, and what those expectations were.
That's a great way to do it. That's another opportunity for y'all to get together and talk and to see what will work for you. And at the same time, you're starting to get a feel for what people really need in this situation, because it's probably going to be different. Even those people that you knew how to deal with in the workplace, it's probably a different way of dealing with them now, huh?
Totally different.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I think I've talked I think I've learned more about my employees in this last month I thought I knew certain things, and I'm learning new things every day about likes, dislikes, personal life, just different things. And I think that's really cool. I'm open. I like that part of it.
That is wonderful. That's why I keep saying I really believe we're going to come out with stronger managers after this situation is passed. We're all going to be better at communicating. Julie, you want to add something in?
Yeah, just to add on to Lacey's statement, I didn't realize how much I'm learning about myself and my needs for communication. I've always been the one who would rather not communicate. I need less interaction, but I didn't realize how much I was relying on the body language and nonverbal feedback from my staff members, that now I'm the one who's initiating, like, hey, can we have a quick Zoom? Can we do a video conference? Like, I need those facial expressions. So it's also a turn or an opportunity for me to learn about what I really need in communication.
Wow. So we really need to be willing to adapt and to accept what has changed with us in this time. Mhm. Awesome information, Lacey. Thank you so much for that. And thanks, Julie, too. And this is what we're going to keep in mind. Half of the issues that we're talking about today are going back to communication. It seems like that's just the recurring theme at this point. Our next one, we wanted to talk about some of the tools for communication too, because it's not the same stuff we were using before. And so we wanted to really stop and think, okay, technology can be our friend. What other ways there are. So Kim, introduce this topic for us.
So there's so many tools out there. We want to know, what are some of the best tools for communication? And I believe, Glenn, you're going to help us out with that.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I tell you, there's a wealth of technology and tools available to us to communicate with our teams. And you see some of them listed here. You have your discussion boards, like things on Canvas, things of that nature. Online documents, Google Docs is invaluable if you're doing some sort of project where you need multiple people working on the same document. You can upload that to Google Docs and everybody work on it at the same time, and you have like anonymous penguin and other things pop up at the top that are working on the document. Emails, of course, your video conferencing. I am a huge fan of Zoom. I am that guy that has multiple backgrounds. I could be on the beach 1 minute or in space the next minute with stars zooming by. So just make sure you're careful setting those functions and things on your video conferencing. I saw a meme where apparently a boss turned herself into a potato for the entire conference. So be careful with your technology there. Different apps like GroupMe and messaging apps, even social media, Facebook, things of that nature. And then, the good old fashioned phone, text and phone calls. Just words to a few tips, some words of wisdom, if you will, when choosing which technology that you want to use or which tool you want to use. First, refer back to what your employees want. When you talk about those team norms, how are things going to be communicated? We also have a really interesting thing in our norms as far as the rule of three. If you're going to be emailing somebody about an issue and you're talking more than 3 emails back and forth to come to a solution, be proactive, kind of plan that out and say, you know what, this is probably going to be a 10 to 12 email. Let me just make a phone call and plan that out. It's also, going back to one of the team norm categories we talked about, conflict. If you do have a situation where conflict is between you and another coworker, it's probably best to handle that either through a Zoom call or video conferencing or a phone call, because Julie mentioned when she was talking about picking up on body language, but you have tone issues. There's tone issues when you're dealing with something via text. You misinterpret things. You may write something in your head, this is how you're saying it, sends it to the other person, and they interpret it in a completely different, maybe even in a harsh tone. So especially with conflict, you want to make sure that that's done either on the phone or through Zoom or other video conferencing mechanisms, just so that you don't have something blown out of proportion because some tone was misinterpreted. So whatever you're deciding to use, whichever technology, whichever tool, base it on what the employee wants as well as the situation that you find yourself in, and ask yourself, is this something that can be handled with a quick text, or if something more in depth like a phone call, or even a full-on group meeting on Zoom or on GoToWebinar.
I find that there's so many tools out there that it fits everyone's personality type, because you think about it, Lacey doesn't like that interaction. She prefers text. On the other hand, you and I love that face-to-face interaction. And so Zoom, when we have our video conferencing, that is something that helps us with that interaction by seeing that person's face and having that face-to-face conversation. So there's so many different tools out there. It's just finding what best fits you.
You know what I'd like to do right now is ask for our viewers to share any tools that they're using right now that are working well for them. If y'all just put those in the chat box, anything that your team is using, or even your family that is using, that is an effective communication tool for you. I'd like to see what some of the different ones are, because we're kind of limited. We have, we use GroupMe, which is that app that we use a lot in the office. We're using Zoom. We use GoToWebinar. Some people use, what is it, Slack? Some of those kinds of things. There's some different ones like that. Some people just use, FaceTime or messaging, things like that. But I'd like to see what some of our viewers' teams use as far as tools that they use for communication. So I'm going to keep an eye open here to see what we get coming up there, and I will report those to you as we go through the rest of the broadcast. I'll talk about what other suggestions they have. Yes, go ahead.
Just real quick, and Kim and we've kind of talked around it. There are a lot, tons of platforms and tools available. I would just caution, because there's a lot of cool bells and whistles out there. Don't overwhelm your employees or even yourself by choosing 10 different platforms, and all of a sudden you have bells and whistles going off all over the place, driving yourself crazy because you've overextended and are overusing the technology. So try to keep it simple, try to keep it to a minimum. Okay, we're doing video conferencing only on GoToWebinar or only on Zoom. We're gonna do all text unless it's an emergency through GroupMe. Keep it to a minimum so you're not making an already stressful situation more stressful on your employees, just to keep that in mind.
That's a good one.
Yeah, you have just identified me. I got carried away at first, and it was like, I want everything. I'm going to put them all on my phone and see what I can do. And pretty soon I was like, oh God, there's like 20 messages here I haven't gotten to because I forgot that I had that one on there. So yeah, you can't be that, attention deficit person like me that goes and gets all of them and then forgets about them. So excellent point, Glenn. Thank you. All right, some great stuff here. Oh man, we're getting some good information from these folks. All right, let's see here. What's our next one? Okay, now the thing is, we're continually working on the stuff that we have to work on. We've still got, even though we're not in the same place, we still have those projects. We still have our missions and our goals. So Kim, introduce our next topic.
So our next topic is, how do I track progress towards our goals? And I believe Jennifer Schulke is going to help us answer that question.
Yes, thank you for having me on, Christy. I really appreciate it. And it's great to be with everybody and sharing all these tips and tricks. I know we're learning a lot of stuff every single day, and I'm going to try to keep it concise because, tracking progress has taken on an added importance now that we've got our teams all over the place. And, I was telling our team, our mission and our vision hasn't changed, but how we are accomplishing this mission and vision, it looks totally different. And so I think creating those platforms that we can stay together and continually moving forward is really important. I think it begins with defining the right goals, if you will. And I think it's important to look at, what are everybody's needs? We've heard it from Glenn and Toby that this is definitely a challenging time for leaders. And one of the participants on a webinar I was on the other day from Allen Interactions, he actually said that leaders, this is a heroic act right now, and a practice in humility. We're not going to get it perfect every single time, but trying new things and moving forward is what we've got to do as leaders to make it work for our team. So what you have on the screen right now is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. and we tweaked it a little bit to make it fit for our work. And if you look at these different levels, some of us may have been all the way at the top at that section, self actualization. We're leading, we're advancing, but right now, a lot of us have been knocked down to that physiological. Maybe somebody's lost a job in the family, or we're not sure how those needs are getting met. I know for our team, we're kind of at that safety level right now. We're looking at how do we restructure everything? How do we make processes work and communication work? And so I think looking at setting those appropriate goals is super important. We can't be working on these big lofty goals when we don't even have processes and communication. So, checking in with your team and getting a temperature for where they are is a great way to do that. I think, Christy, on the next slide, we have an example of that we've used with our team. And this is just a simple, how are you feeling? This is a post Julie put up at the end of week 2. Where are we? Are we in the red? Are we moving towards the green? And just checking in with your people will help you set those appropriate goals and not overload anybody more so than they already are. I think also looking at those smaller goals is super important. We're learning so much right now. And, just because it's not a formal setting, we're all learning an extraordinary amount. And that leads to cognitive overload. And you've got to be careful that, if everybody's already overwhelmed with getting those needs met, we may need to take it and pull back just a little bit. What you're seeing on the dock right now, or on the computer right now, here's some tools that we're using to document and communicate progress within our own projects. Lynn mentioned earlier that the Google Docs, they've just been invaluable to us. And so what we've done is set up a simple spreadsheet. It's got the week, who's responsible for the task, is it on schedule, and then just some feedback. What's going well? That's the plus. You also see a delta column. What we're looking for here is what are the things that you need to change? It's not necessarily what's not going well, but staying proactive and looking forward, what needs to change, and then barriers. How can a supervisor help? So all of this information is going into one area, and it's not intended to be this overwhelming duty. It's like last 5 minutes of the day, just jot in some notes so that we know where everybody is and we can step in if we need to. The graph that you're seeing right now, this is coming from that column, are our projects on schedule? And you can see that first set of bars, that's my group. And yeah, we started out at 3.5, meaning we're working ahead of schedule. And you can see we're kind of going down a little bit. So, this tells me it's a good check-in spot. Is this, we need to have discussion. Do we need to pull back? Are we putting too much on our plates right now? So just having those discussions based on what you're seeing is super important. The next tool that we have for you, this is one that is fairly new to the market. It is called Mural, and it is a new program that I'm actually in love with already. It's a great space. It's a collaboration space for your teams, for brainstorming, whatever it may be. But they have hundreds, literally hundreds of different templates that you can use, where everybody can get into the same room, if you will, and work together. So the one that's up on the dashboard right now, this was the backlog. And so it's set up. Oop, we're going back and forth.
Which one do you want?
I want the backlog real quick.
Okay.
There we go. And so each color on this form is representative of a different person on the team. And they go in, type in, what are your tasks? Where are you working? What are you working on? Where do you need help? And is it done or not? The next slide, Christy, this is kind of a management platform for teams. And it's got all of the same features built in. And it kind of helps leaders guide this process of collaboration within a remote setting. What I love about this one in particular is that it uses your team norms. So it kind of guides you through each step to create your own operations dashboard. So those have been very, very helpful for a lot of people. I will mention they have a 30-day free membership, but after that, it turns into $12 and it's unlimited users. So it's definitely a cost-effective solution for remote work teams as well. If you noticed in all of these examples that I've given you, it shows who is responsible for what. I think in these remote settings, we're asking a lot of people to take on different roles within the team, and we're having to share that leadership. You know, as the supervisor, I can't take on as much as I did within that work setting because I can't just walk around and make sure things are happening within that space. So, you know, really communicating in those team norms what is expected from a leader of a project and giving them the authority and discretion to make those things happen. I think it's very important to communicate that with the team, but also have it documented within whatever tool that you're using. To avoid any kind of conflict, really and truly. So in the end, there are a ton of resources to help you track your progress. You know, I don't want to overlook just simple email. You know, what's going well? Where can I help? Where do we need to go next? What are our next steps? I think at the very minimum, those are the questions we need to be asking our staff.
So if we're technology challenged, we can still do that. We can, you know, as long as we ask the questions.
Absolutely. Stay connected and
Right.
just keep that discussion going.
I am going to ask if our viewers have any other formats that they're using that are working for them. You know, of course, you have to just be sure that it's something that's okay with your department, because those are important things to consider. Let's see, our work from home employees are filling out a daily activity log, and they mail them at the end of the week, and that's a lot of extra emails. So that's a really good point, that we need to make this more user friendly, or you know, maybe it needs to be a compilation in some of those cases. If you have everybody sending it to one person who then sends it to another, then maybe you could start it, you know, and work it that way. Some people are using SharePoint tasks, I see.
Yes, SharePoint is all, you know, it's built into your Outlook. That is a great resource to cut down on the emails that are coming back and forth, and, you know, maintaining the integrity of the document. It's very difficult to keep up with 15 different versions of a document if you're going through email. So I would suggest definitely your SharePoint applications. This is where Google Docs come in. OneNote, the other one is Dropbox. It's also a good collaborative tool where everybody can work from the same document to avoid that, you know, recreating the wheel, if you will. And Julie just posted something in our chat, and I think it's a great point. She pulled it from JJ Watt. So for those of you that are missing sports right now, and he said, you know, be stubborn about your goals, but flexible about your methods. And I think that is great. And Julie, thank you for sharing that, because that is absolutely right. We're not, you know, sacrificing quality or our expectations, but how we get there does need to look different. And we do need to
We don't
figure
have
out what works.
Yeah, we don't have the only answer. You know, we're not
No.
the only one who could think of a way to do something. That's a really good point. One of the questions, Jennifer, was, is that $12 a month that you were saying for that program for
the mural? Yes. Okay. It was $12 a month for one user, but you could invite as many people as you wanted, from what I understand. So that's one of the things that we're looking at right now as well. And I would definitely look into their webinars. They've had some excellent webinars that, you know, really deal with the psychology side of it and what our employees need during this time. And they've really got some innovative ways to use this mural program beyond just brainstorming and planning and tracking, but, you know, for storyboarding your processes. And gosh, I could go on for days. It's a whole nother webinar.
We'll have some more of those, as a matter of fact. Yes. Great information. This is wonderful. We did have a good question now, you know, with the remote access, how do we ensure the security of the information and the records that we're sharing? And that is a very good point. We need to be checking with our agencies on this, don't we?
Absolutely. I would definitely check with your agency. And one of the rules that we have, we're not sharing any kind of confidential information or, this is really for our work processes. The information that we've got on Google, we've got it locked down so that we are only sharing within our work team, but we're not putting any kind of confidential again, or anything that would have a legal connection. That's not appropriate in this situation. We definitely want to maintain the integrity. I would talk to your legal team. I would also talk to your IT before venturing out into these cloud sharing
Yeah,
programs.
right. So we don't drive them crazy. We do not want to make them angry at this time in history.
Right.
No, not at all. But I will share, document organization is huge, especially in Google Docs. Everybody can own different documents. And so what we did was we created one account for our entire team. So if we create something, we automatically give permission to our home address so that we can make sure that we retain all of this knowledge and intellectual property that we're creating as a team right now. We don't want it to just disappear into the ethers after this is all over.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Some great information there. I think people really got some good information out of that they'll be able to use. And yeah, we'll probably bother you again on one of the next webinars to talk some more about that.
Please do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, boy, some really good information that we're getting here. And we've talked a little bit more about the technical side, the projects. We've talked about the communication methods, but we wanted to get back to a little bit of the people side of this whole situation, because we know that all of us are going through challenges and we're all at different stages at different times. So Kim, you want to introduce this one for us?
Definitely. So our next question is, what do I do if I recognize that an employee is struggling? And to help us answer those questions, we have our experts, Toby Como and Julie Miller.
Thanks, guys. The biggest thing for me, I think once you recognize somebody's having a hard time or struggling, I think you need to reach out to that person and you need to interject yourself. I think it's important that they understand, kind of like I mentioned before, like it's okay. Like you're gonna struggle, you're gonna kind of have to work through these things. But it's really important, I think, to have that one-on-one contact. We're in these group settings virtually. We're in these large Zoom meetings. We had this morning we had a 17-person Zoom meeting. If I'm having an issue, like I need to get out of that meeting and talk to somebody one-on-one or two-on-one or something like that. But it's really to give that person, I think the sense of safety to know that yes, like somebody's looking out for me. Somebody's kind of watching to make sure that I'm doing okay with this. And I think employees, I mean myself included, I mean you're used to producing a certain amount of work at work and you're in a different environment, and so you may not be producing the same amount of work. If you have a team member who gives you 100% every single day, you may be getting 80% from that person, and that's okay. I mean there are days when that's what you're gonna get. And I think for somebody who is used to delivering or performing at a certain level, not to perform at that same level, I think that can be frustrating. I think people can struggle with that just with themselves. And so I think as a leader, especially right now, it's letting that person know what they're doing is valuable, what they're doing is important, it's being recognized, and that we're just kind of work through this together and get it. Once all this is finished, we can go back to doing how we do it. But I think just once you see it, interject, have that communication, and just kind of work it that way.
Yeah, and I'll definitely add, Toby brings up a lot of good points. I think some of the things that will help you be able to recognize these things is talking to your employees, having these conversations, know what's going on at home with them. Do now they juggle two different jobs, because not only are they doing work for you at the state, are they a teacher as well now? Are they doing dog care or pet care now as well? People are juggling a lot of different things. And I think it's important for us as leaders to know what's going on in their house. So, when they don't answer that email as fast as they would in the office, we know what's going on at home, so we can be more flexible in our expectations with what's happening. And I think that goes a long way with your employees, and having that understanding that, what, we're all doing the best we can at this point, juggling however many different things we are. But knowing that as leaders, I can go and talk to my leaders and say, hey, please don't expect this from me, or don't expect 100% from me right now. Like 80 is as good as it's going to get right now, and being understanding to that.
Yeah, and something I'd add real quick. Some of this, the things that I share with some of my group is, I've had my own struggles with this setup, and so half the time it's me who's struggling, to be honest with you, and to have responsibility for making sure other people are good and other people have what they need. It's a lot. It's a lot to put on yourself. And like Julie said, when you're juggling things, so I have multiple children at home. I have a dog at home who now wants to. I'm surprised that she hasn't jumped up on this call yet. Um, and that stuff it's tricky. And so for me, I've had to just have some meetings with my team for myself, because I just needed to see everybody. I needed to talk to everybody. I called it my own therapy session, just to see them, to see what was going on, and to let them know, hey, this isn't about work. Like, I'm struggling to feel comfortable. I'm struggling to kind of get my gears going the right way. And it was really productive. And it's I had some conversations after that where I was like, thank you for saying that, because I felt the same way, but I just didn't want to let people know I was having a hard time with this. And it's like, no, like, it is totally okay to do that. And that's just sort of like the new normal with this a little bit, I think.
It's being a little vulnerable, and letting your employees know that, hey, we're all in this together, we're all experiencing this at the same time, and we're all here for each other. And it goes back to what Julie said about looking at those nonverbal cues, because in the beginning it took me a little longer to get acclimated, because my second job as a sixth grade teacher, it's not going well. Okay. And so with Julie, she noticed that in one of our meetings, I wasn't as talkative as I usually am. And so she asked me to get, if we could, just her and I, have a Zoom call, and she wanted to make sure that everything was okay. And she knew that my second job, I hate it, but she asked, what is it that I can do? Is it that you need from me? And so knowing that that she understood that I am doing the best that I can, and that she was here for me, was very comforting as an employee.
And now Kim is back to her talkative self, and none of us will ever forgive Julie for that.
Right.
Yeah. And I just wanted to comment kind of on what Toby was talking about. I mean, it was invaluable to me, especially those first couple of days, to be able to be transparent that, hey, I am struggling, and I think taking that first step as a leader and admitting that this isn't perfect, I'm not keeping it all together right now, and we do need to rely on each other. Toby, what you said, I mean, it opened the door for other people to admit it. And, again, this is a practice in humility. We're not going to be perfect. And I think allowing our employees to see that side, while it's not comfortable, it definitely strengthens those relationships and the team in general.
Mm-hmm.
Great job, Toby.
We are going to be so much stronger teams when we get through this. And I think we're also going to be stronger individuals, because we're continually growing through this situation. This is it's a tough time, but it's also an opportunity for us to be stronger. Okay, let's see here. We've got another one that we want to see here. Let's see what this one is. Oh, okay, now this is a biggie. I mean, this is not just one of those hey, here's a quick question for you, right? This is the big picture. So, Kim, what are we talking about on this next one?
All right, so our next question is, how can I show empathy and still be a leader? And so we have Toby and Dana to go ahead and provide us with some answers.
Yeah, it's interesting to me in this question because all of us have different levels of empathy, how we empathize on a daily basis. And we I had a conversation with somebody, I think on day like 2 of when we started teleworking, and that individual had a very high level, a very need for social connection, very much a people person. And so 2 days in, they were really having a hard time not seeing people, in the office or just seeing people. I don't have as high of a level as that. So for me, it was like I had to understand that and had to make some, arrangements to have conversations with that individual. Um, but really just to understand that, like that was what was challenging that person at that moment. It wasn't, the same issues I was dealing with, which were logistical issues with my children and just our workspace and where is everybody going to kind of set up, was causing me stress. What was causing them stress was not seeing people and not talking to the people that they talk to every day that gave them, I think, a sense of comfort in the office. And so it's really an opportunity to kind of transition from focusing on the work. We focus so much, and in my role, I'm focusing a lot on the vision and the mission of our agency, and are we aligned with the direction from our director? And it's very global. But it's an opportunity to transition to something that's not as global, not as broad, and it's really people to people connections and relationships. And what I have found through this short time is the relationships that we had built at work, the things that we had been working on at work, developed a high level of trust within our team. And so we had these things that we were working on that allowed us to transition into this. But you still, I think, on a daily basis, it's showing that empathy. It's really understanding what, and somebody I think had just said that, like, because you don't know what everybody's dealing with. You don't know, I talk to Dana, very, very regularly, but I don't know what Dana has going on every day. Dana doesn't know what I have going on every day unless we tell each other, and we do, so we know what's kind of going on with each other. So it makes our conversations in this time so much more productive, and that makes us, I think, as employees more productive. So having that understanding, having the ability to say, like, this is not the work's important, the work's going to get done, but I'm really more focused on, are you good? Like, are you feeling good? Are you comfortable? Like, what do you need? And that's not what we're asked to do every day in some of our roles. And so it's an interesting opportunity to kind of branch out and to do some things differently with your teams. And I think, like Jennifer just said, to really develop, I think, a deeper connection, a deeper relationship.
Mm-hmm. That's great, Dana.
I would just tack onto that and say, I think the skills that leaders are developing now to become more empathic and to lead with more empathy are going to influence them and how they deal with their teams moving back into the office. These kinds of deeper connections, we're doing things differently because of our situations. We're all over the state. We have different ways of communicating. But I think those underlying currents of the platinum rules, for example, learning how to treat people the way they need to be treated, I think what we see is that leads to productivity even under the harshest of circumstances. Yes, there are times that we're going to be at 60%, 80%. There are going to be times when people are frustrated, they need to vent. But we also see, or at least what I've seen in the three or so weeks we've been doing this, productivity that's amazing to me. And I think that those concepts are very related because we are caring for the people, when they are able to work, are working furiously and things are getting accomplished that, as I said, amaze me. You would think that talent development to some extent, we might slow down, but people are being creative. They are being um, they're being initiative. They're filled with initiative, coming up with new ideas. And I think a lot of this is a result of the fact that we are empathetic with each other. We have each other's backs. We are, how can I help you with this project? And so being a leader and showing empathy, I think, are really kind of synonyms. And is certainly now, but as we move forward and go back to the office, some of these lessons that we've learned during this difficult time, I think will serve leaders well when they go back. That you'll always want to know, if I'm talking to Kim, how does Kim want to be treated, as opposed to when I'm talking to Toby, how does Toby want to be treated? And it's not like I have to completely change who I am to meet those needs. It may be taking a minute to chat with Kim socially and having an agenda for Toby, or whatever that might mean. It's just understanding and respecting those differences, and having empathy for how people would like to be treated. The only other thing I would add to this question is, as a leader, I think, we've talked a lot today about leaders need some help too. Leaders need to display a bit of vulnerability. Leaders need to understand when other people are having a hard time. And I completely agree with that. I would just add that as a leader, I think that we have a responsibility to try to end interactions positively. Yes, it's bad right now, but it's going to be better tomorrow. Or yes, this is not working. Let's talk about what we can do to make it work. So that is that one little thing that it behooves a leader to do, in my mind, that changes it from being an empathetic person to being an empathetic leader.
Well
Wow.
said.
Yes, definitely. And yeah, I mean, both of y'all, that's what we dream of in our leaders, is people that recognize us as individuals and as employees, not just as okay, that's a person who does this, but a person who has these specific feelings and is going through some tough times right now. And so that's what we need. That's what we're asking for.
And something else, just real quick, just something Dana said just kind of popped in my mind, and she's right. I've had the opportunity to have some conversations with people about things that, I mean, we have projects that we're not working on, right? They're on hold, or we know we're gonna touch them once we get back to the office, kind of thing. But I've been really impressed with how people have sort of stepped up and come up with different things that we wouldn't maybe have thought about before. We've done some things a little bit differently with communicating in this time, that are going to set us up to do some different things in the future. But the fact that people still are keeping track of all these other things that we have going on, they're still coming up with different ways to move those projects forward. I mean, you saw the stuff Jennifer, showed about with the tracking of the projects and everything. But, I think people, so they have a tendency to surprise you as a leader. And I think, people get kind of set in their roles in an organization, and you kind of, what to come to expect from everybody. You throw the organization into a little bit of a crisis, which I would say that this would define a crisis for us. And I think you see people in the midst of those struggles, and in the midst of the anxiety that they're dealing with, are really performing at sometimes more impressive levels than you may have thought that they would. And I think that's a very impressive thing, just from a people standpoint. And I think it shows the resilience of people. I think it shows their commitments to your organizations. And it's something for me as a leader that makes me feel very good working through this, that I know that I have people who I get to work with who have that level of commitment. And it's really, it's comforting in a way for me that, you may not have seen in the office.
It reaffirms our faith that we have some of the best people working at the state of Louisiana that are anywhere. I mean, just to see how people are stepping up in these situations, it's amazing and it's awe-inspiring.
Definitely.
Great stuff, y'all. Thank you so much. Well,
Thank you
we've
for
gotten,
having us.
we're so glad you're doing this, and we're getting to our point where we're talking about our closing thoughts. We have about 4 minutes to sneak some of these in. So if I've got somebody who'd like to throw in a closing thought, Glenn wants to say something. Hey, Glenn.
And just to kind of close out, just everybody's provided some great information about how to manage your people and deal with your people and make sure that you are what your people need, your employees need in a supervisor. But at the end of the day, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're doing your employees a disservice. So take that time that you need. If you need to, take a couple extra breaks during the day to keep your sanity, or if you need to take a walk, you need some quiet time, whatever you need to do to make sure that you're okay physically, mentally, emotionally, take that time and make sure you're doing those things, because if you're not going to be there for your employees like they need. So take care of yourself.
Amen. We've heard it so
Yeah.
many times. Put on our oxygen mask first. And it's definitely the case there. I did want to just try to see if I could go through a couple of these comments that we have so many good comments. A lot of teams are using Zoom, Google Hangouts, WebEx, text messaging, iPhone FaceTime. We have some people who are using Life-Size for video meeting. I've never heard of that one. Let's see here. Fan of Zoom, Skype, Google Docs and Google Forms. Yes, Mural. Somebody else talking about how they love that. The Microsoft Teams app. Good Lord, Canvas. Some are using that. Slack is great. Rimmon. I've never heard of that one. Discord. Remind. Oh, that was Remind. Okay. So there's a whole lot of different things out there. I guess the answer to that is find a tool that works for you.
That's right.
And so I will try to get back to some of these folks who had specific questions that we weren't able to answer during the course of this today. Just really great information today. Let's see here what we have. Our last few things that we look at here. Just want to give you tips on the rest of this stuff. First of all, if you want to find the handouts for today, for yesterday, for any of our webinars, as a matter of fact, you go to the civil service page, and there's where you can see the little talent development and CPTP. Click on that one, and it's going to bring up the talent development page. At the very bottom of the little tabs on the side, it says Success Series Webinars. And you click on that, and you can bring up all of our handouts there that we've had for any of these sessions. And the ones today I really highly recommend, because there's a lot of extra information, and the one yesterday too. Also on this page is where you can find the place to register for the next 3 weeks. We have classes coming up, webinars with some other topics that will help you, and we're looking for some of your best tips. So we really want you to join us and share things that are working for you and ideas that you have that can help the rest of the state. We want to be able to compile all of those and share those across the state for other people to be able to use those ideas, so we don't have to learn everything the hard way, ourselves. We can benefit from some secondhand learning there too. Our past webinars, once again, are on the YouTube channel. Just search for State Civil Service and it'll pop right up, and you go to the Success Series list. And this webinar, the webinar from yesterday, and all the other ones will be on there for you to be able to see. This one should be up in a couple of days, and you'll be able to watch it again in case you missed anything on this one. And so some good information. Kimberly, thank you for all of this.
Thank you.
Good, isn't it, hearing our leaders talk like this?
Definitely. It just reminded me of we have a great place to work. We're working with it.
Absolutely. We want to thank y'all so much. We want to remind you, you are not alone. You got us as resources. Please call upon us. You got a state full of outstanding people that you work with. Check on them, please. See how everybody is doing. Check on yourself and take care of you. And please stay connected. And of course, as I always say, please keep on learning. Thanks for being here today, folks.
Bye.
Bye.
Every day for every citizen.